Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into Materialize, an incredible open source tool that's completely free and perfect for creating high quality material maps. If you've been looking for an alternative to paid tools like Substance Sampler, this is it. In this video, I'll walk you through how to generate maps like normal, height, metallic, edge, and ambient occlusion, and show you how to use them in Blender, Substance Painter, to bring your textures to life. Materialize makes the process simple and effective. So whether you're new to material creation or a seasoned artist, this is a tool you'll definitely want in your arsenal. Now bear in mind, this works with things like, taking photos outside with a phone, maybe of a tree bark or the ground or something like that. As long as your texture is generally square, but it doesn't have to be, then you can bring it over into Materialize. This can also work with AI art. So let's say you're, I don't know, generating bricks or soil or anything like that through something like Midjourney or anything like that. Think of leaves. Think of any kind of example where you have a base color texture and you would like to have a height map, a normal map, and so on, and then to use them in your favorite 3D software. Well, Materialize does it all for you. One of the best ways for me to showcase just what's possible with Materialize is to effectively show you an example, like what I have here in Blender where I've made this plant. This particular plant would normally only have had a base color where I, had the reference of a leaf, and I then had the leaf and added it to the plant. But for example, how do you actually create a normal map out of that? Because in the past, people would have used tools like Photoshop, which no longer supports the ability to create normal maps from a base color, or something like maybe Substance Sampler or anything like that. Now, if I disable the normal map here, you'll notice that these leaves do actually take a look, they don't look as good as what they did with a normal map. And if we switch over from cycles to Eevee, this will probably showcase this even better. This is what the leaves look like without the normal map, and this is what they look with the normal map on, right? So it's definitely a difference. Now, obviously, I've exaggerated the normal map here. Normally, you'd probably want something like a value of 1, or, go up all the way to maybe like even a 10 if you'd like. But you can see that it's obviously changing the way that this looks. And if I disable the base color entirely, we'll be able to see the normal map right there onto the leaves. So if we actually have a look at the texture of this, so let me just switch over to a UV editor. This is what the texture looks like for the actual base color. And if we switch this over to a normal map, so this one, this is what the normal map looks like, which was done through Materialize. Now, ignore the artifacts around there. That's not really the point. Those wouldn't be there if, in the normalized workflow. This is something that I've done myself through some other type of caveats, which I will probably explain to you when I get to that point. Right, now the software of Materialize is very simple. Once you have it open, it's very easy to, once you have downloaded it and extracted it, it's very easy to use. You just double click the software and this will open it very, very quickly. And you can see in here, this is the interface. Very straightforward. You can right click in order to like move around. You can zoom in and out, and you can also hold hold the scroll button in order to like pan around the scene. So very straightforward. You can actually go into controls over here to see what the controls are, but you can also click the settings and change from a Max style to a Maya style if you'd like. For the normal map style, and you can also enable or disable the post-process by default. Now, post-process is on when you open it, but if you click over here, you're actually able to disable it entirely, and you do get quite a few options in here if you'd like to change around of what you're noticing on the canvas in the world. So that's really straightforward, I would say. But if you want to actually start using any of these maps, you'll notice there's nothing in here in these slots. And basically you want to start off with, you can start off with any map you'd want, because basically you can kind of reverse engineer, so to speak. But the idea would be that you would want to go with a diffuse map first, okay? And you cannot generate a normal map without the height map. So once you get a diffuse map in, you'll generate a height map, and then you'll generate the normal map out of that, and so on and so forth. Let me now load up some textures in here. We'll try about 3 different textures just for you to get an idea. So what we're going to do is we're going to click this diffuse map and press in the O over here to open it. Now I created a new texture folder in here. And I do have this JPEG of a we'll call it texture demon relief, right? So I'm going to double click this, and then you can see that it's now opened it and added it to the canvas like that. Okay, now what we're going to do in order for us to be able to start using this, we're going to create the height map. So I can actually click the create button and you'll notice that it's created this divide point over here. If I drag this slider over, I'm going to be able to see the whole image as I create a height map. And over in here, I can actually, start playing around with these settings as much as I would like. So for example, this is going to determine the height and all that stuff. So it's really down to what you're trying to get out of this. So maybe do something like that. Again, you can just play around with a lot of these settings if you'd like that. For example, maybe I wanted to like make the bigger sort of like shapes over here, like wherever is black is actually going inward, when wherever is white is actually coming outward. So once we're happy with that, we're just going to click on the set height map. And then if we click the preview button, this is going to show us what that looks like. And now we can actually also create a normal map. You can see that the button for the create normal map has become available. So we can actually create a normal map. And you'll see it says it's creating a normal from height. So then again, you can play around with these settings in here in order to get the effect that you're looking for. Generally, I find that the default options for normal map straight off the bat is actually quite decent. I wouldn't be too, I wouldn't actually do too many changes here, but it really depends on what you're looking for. But I'm going to click at set normal map, and this is obviously has now created the normal map, which for some reason has become inverted. But no, it should be fine, right? Something like that. And we can, again, obviously preview what we've generated so far. Now, this image in general was already quite easy to do because it was already a black and white image like that. Obviously, we can create a metallic map if we would like. So again, just have a look in here and see which parts of this should become metallic and which shouldn't. But again, it's down to you and your preference. We can create an edge map, an ambient occlusion map, which I find would be quite useful as well. So we can just kind of have a look and see like what's the power of the AO. So maybe something like that, right? And I think this is looking quite nice so far. And we can then look at, like the post process if you'd like to enable it and just still play around with some of the settings in here as well, which is going to help you a lot in terms of like determining how this will look after you export it. But after you're happy with it, then you can just click on this button here where it says show full material, and this is going to show you just the result of what we've done. Now obviously there are some issues here, right? The eyes have gone kind of in, and this is the problem when you have textures, because you're going to have to like have a look and see what exactly did go wrong. So what you can do in here is like you can just change these settings, like you get some parallax already as well. You've got the ambient occlusion power, which might be a bit too much, but effectively it's the height map generally that's got a problem. So you can always go to the preview of the height map in here as well, and you can actually clear it and then just say, you know what, I want to create it again. So maybe this time you look at these frequencies and just say, well, I think the face there just kind of needs to be whitened out. You can't really paint this stuff, so you will have to like work out what would be the best type of thing. Like you can obviously click the displace button over here as well just to see, but you can then have a look at the this is going to show you that like the actual metrics that it's using to displace this. So this is the default preset here, but we can actually look at perhaps making it a bit more like that. Just trying to make some changes, maybe something like that. So we can set up the height map again and just show the full material. And this is obviously not displacing as much as it did before because we no longer have that massive contrast. That's just kind of how it goes on this image. This image in general, I specifically selected this one because it had these harsh shadows, which are already going to play a pivotal role into getting this this relief or whatever you want to call it properly done. Now we're going to clear the maps of this demon. So we're going to press the button over here where it says clear all texture maps, and this will delete everything. And now we can actually open a new texture. But if I press the O button in here, I cannot see any other texture, even though I have two more in the same folder. So what I'm going to do, if I go back to my texture folder, you'll notice in here that I have a two files which are web files, and that's why they're not being seen as as an image. But what we need to do is we need to change these. So that's quite easy. We're actually going to use Paint for this. So with Paint on, I can just drag the night in here. And then I can actually go File, Save As, and I want to save it as a JPEG. And I'm obviously going to just save it in the same folder where I had it before. And then I want to do the same thing to this fern as well. So again, open it in Paint and File, Save As. So this is just a very easy way for you to convert web to, you know, like JPEG. And once we do that, we can go back into Materialize in here, click on the O button, and then we have these two textures showing up. So if we open the fern is actually an interesting sort of aspect, because once you click the, you know, create height map in here, you'll now be able to see just kind of what kind of height map you're going to get. Now, this is going to play an important role to how your normal map is going to look like when you actually generate it. So I would definitely advise that you play a little bit with this in here as well. You don't want to, you definitely want to make sure that you get the best possible looking plant based on your demands. So again, it's very important that you set up the right height map for when you generate a normal map. Right, once that's done, you can obviously click and finish it. And these two textures should be enough for what I need in order to get a fern going into Blender. If I click on the S button in here, it's going to ask me to save it. So I could call this, you know, T from texture and just say base, well, BC fern. So now we know that this is the fern that we've just saved. And then we can do the normal map as well. So again, we can say T underscore well, this is normal and fern, right? And now I can save them. Now both of those were saved as a BMP type of file, but you can obviously save them as any other type of file as well. And if we go back into our texture folder in here, you'll notice that we now have a fern. Well, we should have, actually, where the hell did I save it? Because I don't think I've saved it where I wanted to save it. So yeah, clearly haven't done it. Oh, sorry, did I? Yeah, save normal map. I'm sure I've done the right thing. So DN, so burn right now, and I'm gonna say select. Yeah, this is very odd. Where did I save the files? Because it definitely did not save them. Interesting and odd type of development, but basically if you click on the S button over here and select the fern, and then click on select, this will actually create another folder, sorry, another file called T_fern, which we know this is the normal map, because if we actually open it, this will be the normal map. Interesting stuff, but once we've, you know, got it out, we can just do T_n fern, so we have our fern over there. And I can actually, you know, base color, obviously, I don't need to do. Now, when you preview the full material, you'll actually be able to notice just what the effect is going to be. So, you know, you can kind of tell based on the height map and the normal map how this will look like. Obviously, you can preview any one of these, so you're able to just see exactly what you're getting when you do it. And one other thing that you can also do is you can actually tile the maps. If you click this button in here, you can actually play around with just creating these interesting kind of effects that you could work around and make it so that it actually is tileable, right? So you can do this to any texture, which I find this to be very powerful, because this could be really good for things like, you know, creating, you know, think about like tiles for bricks or anything like that, right? So this is going to allow you to do so many more different things. As you can see, this is quite powerful. So you can change the canvas, the resolution of the canvas, and what that looks like. And obviously, this is more like a pattern thing. The splat one is actually quite good, because I think it's very powerful, because you can mix a lot and, you know, for example, create a ground full of leaves and dirt and all that stuff. So it's really cool what you can do with this particular setting. But now we obviously have a fern normal and a fern type of texture as well, and this is going to play right in our hands with the Blender material over here, because this is how I've kind of generated these as well. And actually I have some more examples. If I look at the fern over here, this is a fern that I've created with this technique, and you'll notice that it's using the leaves that were generated that way as well. Now we can also use this in something like Substance Painter or something like that as well, which is again very powerful. But if we go back into our Materialize software in here and we clear again all the maps, let's just get our final texture, which is the night. So I'm going to click on the O button over here. I'm going to select this night and just click select. And now we have it in here. We can go to show full material. Obviously, there's nothing, we haven't generated any new map. we can just create a height map in there. I'm going to kind of leave it as default, so we're just going to click on set height map, and then I'm going to do the normal map, again set normal map. We are going to do like a metallic as well, and I am going to do an AO. Okay, I'm not changing anything, just gonna go to show full material. So this is quite nice, maybe get a bit more contrast there. So I am going to go back to the height map in here, and I do want to get like more contrast on the color. So I'm just going to look on you know, just how much, just I'm gonna make it very sharp as well, and I'm gonna try to darken it maybe, you know, quite a bit, just to really get some nice kind of separation there. So I'm going to click select the set height map, and then I'm going to say show full material. So you can see this is like a really massive displacement that I've done here, right? And this was on purpose. Now what we can do is we can obviously save all these maps. So I can click on S over here and select the night, and I can actually, once I select the night, I can actually go over here and just say underscore, I'm going to say this is the height map, right? And if I click select, you'll notice that it has generated a map if we do it that way, and it's also named it. So I think it's more of a problem with the actual file. You have to tell it. If you just, so I think where I was going wrong, and I'm pretty sure I can prove this. If I want to do the normal map again, right, and without selecting the night or anything, I'm just going to put in here t underscore night normal and then .jpeg, or sorry, .bmp. I think now I go on select, yep, there you go, now it's generated it. So I had to literally write in there .bmp. I'm also going to be saving the this metallic. So again, I'm going to select the night and underscore metallic, and I'll do the same thing then for the AO, and we can bring this over into Blender just so we can use it as well and just see what we can get out of it with using all these maps. Now in Blender, we've set up the material very quickly, adding the base color, ambient, occlusion, metallic, normal, and height map. And this is using Blender cycles. And what we've done is we added a subdivision, modifier as well, just to make sure that we subdivide this mesh quite considerably, this particular cube. And if we look at the UV, sorry, on the UV editor, yeah, if we go into edit mode, you'll notice that every face of the cube has just been dropped to be as big as the UV. So just make sure you do that in order for your textures to align properly with the cube. And going back to the shader editor in there, you will notice that we do have displacement, which is quite neat, and it's working as intended. And now we can actually even increase the ability of this of seeing this properly. Just to make sure that your displacement is working, just make sure over here in the material that you've created for the cube, for example, make sure that down here you do have the surface set to displacement and bump. Otherwise, this won't work if you don't do it. Once you have that done, you can actually go to Blender cycles over here and just change over to experimental instead of using the supported version. And once you change over to experimental, you will be able to then go back into your modifiers, and you will have an option where basically you can actually have adaptive subdivision. If you turn that on, this is going to allow your Blender to actually, work with something like called a dicing scale, and this is going to ensure that you actually subdivide the mesh even more than usual, and it's going to give you an even better result. But just when you switch over, just bear in mind that you might have a bit of an issue where it's basically not rendering, so that might actually be a problem. Generally, this is you can change this dicing scale to the point where you're getting better results, but just bear in mind that this could completely kill off your resource if you do it, right? So just bear in mind that when you look at it over here, the higher I believe the number is, so multiplier for scene dicing rate, basically the higher the higher this number can be, the more sort of like dicing you'll be getting, so more adaptive subdivision. But again, I wouldn't recommend doing this unless you're just rendering and you know what you're doing. But normally you don't, just keep it disabled and just work with a normal subdivision. Otherwise the performance might actually cripple as you play around with the scene, right? Obviously you can get this displacement in Eevee as well, but I won't, this is not a tutorial for that. This was mainly just to show you how to get the texture going in Blender, in Blender or in something else. So for now, I just want to switch over to Substance Painter as well, just to show you how we can use these textures over there as well. So in Substance Painter, I can actually go to just File and press New, and I will get my cube that I've actually done earlier. I can bind it right over in here. I've just exported the cube that we use in Blender, and now we're just using it in Substance Painter. So with the cube added in, this is going to have already, BUV unwrapped and so on. Every face is the same face. There's nothing fancy about what we're doing. We've got the cube, and now we can bring over our Materialize textures. So if I go over to where I have my textures added on, I can actually select all of these. So for example, I can get the night, which, the night, the height map, the normal, metallic, AO, all of these, and actually I can drop them over into Substance Painter. Now the program was going to ask me what type of resources are these. I'm just going to say, well, these are textures, so then Substance Painter knows what to do with them. I'm just going to put texture in here, and I'm only going to import them to the current session. Once I press the import button, this will bring the textures over into it, and I'm just going to type in here night so I can see them. These are all the textures that we brought in. Now, if we want to see them on the mesh, we can just destroy this paint layer and add a fill layer. And with the fill layer added, we have these slots over here. So I'm just going to put this into the base color, and this is going to go into the AO, but you're not going to see an AO. That's fine. What we can do is go over to our texture set settings, click on this plus button and select ambient occlusion, and now we will have it. Go back to the layer tab and enable the AO over here so we can see the slot. We can drop this over in there. We can then drop our, I believe this is the height map, yeah, so we can add the height, and we can add the metallic, and we can also add the normal map like that. And now our mesh is fully textured inside Substance Painter. Obviously there's no displacement, but that can be rectified. So you can go over into the shader editor over here and go all the way down. And where you have this information where it says displacement scale, you can just start increasing this number. So maybe a 0.02 should be just fine. As you can see, the display of the height map in Substance Painter is superior to what Blender can do. And we can actually increase the subdivision count of this cube even further if we would like, in order to get a bit more resolution there. And we can actually bump this more, but I wouldn't go too much, right? I think as a 0.02 looks to be about right to me, okay? And obviously you can export this mesh with like this from Substance Painter if you'd like, actually displaced. So what I mean by this is you can go to File, Export Mesh, and this allows you to, to basically, export it with tessellation, right? With displacement tessellation. So if you click that button, I don't know how long it's going to take depending on how big the mesh will be. But obviously you can then bring this over to something like ZBrush or something like that in order to decimate it. But this is one type of use. There are other types of uses as well. So let's say we disable this fill layer entirely. And let's just say we have another type of mesh. Just imagine this is, I don't know, a column or something like that. And let's say you want to paint it in. You can actually go to the paint layer over here, and then over into, what type of painting you're going to be doing. We can actually select, for example, well, I just want to paint with the height map, right? Nothing, no normal, nothing else. So maybe height mapping and AO, right? Then we can just bring in the height map. So bring that over in there. And then we can just bring the AO as well over like that. And this allows us now to paint, right? So if we, increase this, we can actually paint it. Obviously, you've got to make the brush as big as you can, and then just drop it, and that will make it, you can see it over there. Now, this is the maximum brush size, but you can always, what I'm trying to say is, like, it doesn't matter how close you get to the mesh or whatever, this is going to be the max that you're going to get out of this brush. Now, there are ways around this, because you don't have to only paint this way. You can actually do it as sort of like a projection, which is going to be more fitting if you're trying to fill this entire area, for example. Also, what you can also do is you can change the size space from object. You can do it to viewport, or you can change it to texture. I would definitely recommend viewport in this case, so then you can still paint. As you can see, it's doing that. But just bear in mind that it's also going to go all across, all around the mesh. So again, this is it's doing this for us because every UV on our cube is the same UV. So every part of this UV. So if we just paint over here, it's going to show on every face just because of how this mesh is being made. But if you wouldn't have that, you could just, as I said, just switch this over to from object space to viewport, and then look from one side and just paint it in there, and it will only show over like that. But there's another way of doing this, which is through projection as well. So in order for us to actually paint in projection mode, all we need to do is switch over to the projection mode, which means that the texture that you'll be loading will be loaded on the entire screen. So we're going to click the projection over here. Now, when we do, you can see that the viewport has now changed to this 2D version. Well, it's not 2D version, sorry. The texture is now showing up, and, you know, the 2D texture is showing over on the screen. You can still see the mesh in the background over there. But if you want to align it, you can just, you know, alt-click, left-click to rotate, right? Well, sorry, while holding alt, left-click to rotate, and then hold shift to lock that into one, sort of like one space, one, you know, facing over, and then you can zoom in. So we're just trying to get this cube to kind of match the texture that we're trying to paint on, so maybe something like that. You see, this looks quite good. Now we can see the texture. If you don't see the texture, that's because you didn't add it into the slots over here when we switched over to projection. So again, when you click the projection button, right, so if you go to paint, this is what it looks like. If you click the projection button over here, it will load this and you will have a new tool set. And over here I've just done the height and AO again, and I've dropped the maps. But if I actually delete those, I won't be able to see them, as you can, you know, you'll notice. So I'm just going to drag them in again, AO, and like that. I don't want any base color, I just want the height map and the ambient occlusion. And then we can start painting. You'll see that the texture has disappeared, but we can see what we're doing. We are adding the detail onto the cube as we do this, and it's looking quite nice, obviously. Yeah, something like that. Okay, and this allows us to, for example, say, well, you know, maybe I don't want certain parts, so I can just switch over to an eraser and, you know, effectively remove some parts of that. Now this can be done with masks, can be done with other things as well if you'd like, but again, this is something like, maybe you want to do wear and tear, maybe the, you know, weathering over here has destroyed the actual paint, you know, the mural or whatever you want to call it, right? So this is how that kind of functions. And you can see how powerful this is and how easy it was, because we use Materialize. We just got textures out very, very quickly. Textures that we normally wouldn't have had access to, we were able to bring them very, very quickly inside Substance Painter or Blender and use them, and we can turn this into a 3D asset as well if we would like. Now this works very well with AI imagery or things like that as well, and effectively any image that you take out in the woods or wherever you go, you can just do this with, I don't know, bark from a tree or anything like that can be done via Materialize. And that's it for today's tutorial on Materialize. As you've seen, this free tool offers an easy and efficient way to create detailed material maps, making it a fantastic alternative to paid software. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay updated on more tutorials like this. And if you want access to all my projects or exclusive content, check out my Patreon. It's a great way to support the channel and get even more value. Now, you know, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Keep creating.